On the morning of July 4th, Cottonwood Junction, Oklahoma, woke up hot, bright, and noisy. The railroad whistle blew before sunrise. Flags hung from porches on Main Street. The diner opened its front windows to let out the smell of coffee, bacon, and fresh pie. Down by the tracks, the school band was already trying out drums and trumpets on the little bandstand near the courthouse lawn. Vincent Earl Donahue walked to May's Bottling Works with his lunch pail in one hand and a pair of work gloves in the other. He was a good fixer and a fast helper, the kind of man folks called when a screen door stuck, a truck belt slipped, or a crate needed lifting. Today he had one job: help move the root beer barrels for the parade and picnic. Mr. Delbert Mays, the bottling plant owner, wanted every barrel ready by noon. Ruth Bell at the diner wanted root beer for the crowd. The town wanted a smooth holiday. Vincent wanted the same thing. At the bottling works, 6 big wooden barrels sat on the loading dock. They were dark, round, and wet with cold from the cellar. Metal hoops held each barrel tight. A hand truck rested under the front stack. Mr. Mays kept pacing past them, mopping his forehead with a red handkerchief. "Don't let anything go wrong today," he said. Vincent gave the stack a careful look. "I won't, if the dock doesn't fall apart first." Mr. Mays tried to laugh, but he sounded nervous. "These barrels are for the parade crowd and the picnic crowd. We need every drop." Across the street, Ruth Bell was hanging paper stars in the diner window. She looked over and pointed one finger at the dock. "And keep those barrels away from my front steps," she called. "I just washed them." Vincent lifted one barrel, a little, and checked the board under it. It was steady enough. He nodded once. Then he heard the freight train before he saw it. The ground gave a small shake. A low rumble rolled past the plant. The old dock boards shivered under his boots. One of the wheel chocks slipped. The hand truck jerked sideways. The front barrel tipped, then the second, then all 6 of them leaned at once like a line of brown moons losing the sky. Mr. Mays threw up both hands. Oh, no! The first barrel hit the dock edge with a hard thump and dropped onto the ramp. The second followed so fast it bumped the first. Then the whole stack broke loose. "Stop them!" someone shouted. But barrels do not listen when they get moving. They rolled down the slanted ramp, bounced off a cracked board, and shot into the alley beside Main Street. One barrel clipped a crate of peaches from the produce stand. Another knocked a tin bucket off a porch step. A third rolled so fast it made the loose papers on the courthouse lawn leap into the air. Vincent did not waste a second. He ran after them. He knew the street well. The barrels were headed straight past Bell's Diner, across the open square and toward the bandstand where the school band was setting up for the parade. If they hit the diner windows, glass would fly. If they hit the bandstand, they could crush the steps or send music stands spinning. And if they kept going, they would roll right into the crowd, waiting for the parade. Ruth saw the barrels coming and shouted from her door, "Vincent, those things are headed for my place." "I see that," he yelled back. Sheriff Joe Mercer came out of the courthouse with his hat half on his head. "Clear the street," he barked. Kids scattered from the curb. A boy on a bicycle nearly tipped over trying to turn away. 2 women pulled their lawn chairs back. Mr. Tate, the band director, grabbed a trumpet player by the shoulder and pointed everyone toward the bandstand steps. Vincent kept his eyes on the barrels. They were moving faster now, each one bumping and wobbling as it went. One rolled toward the diner awning. Another bounced across the dusty road and came back in line. He could not stop 6 heavy barrels, one by one with his hands. He needed a bigger idea, and he needed it right now. Then he saw it. Parked by Haskins' garage, just half a block away, was Cal Haskins's flatbed truck. It was an old blue truck with a strong rear gate, a rope coil in the bed, and a winch on the side. 2 long planks leaned against the garage wall. Vincent pointed at the truck and ran even faster. "Cal!" he shouted. "I need your flatbed." Cal Haskins stepped out of the garage, wiped his hands on a rag, and stared at the rolling barrels. "For what?" "For a root beer rescue." Cal looked from the barrels to Vincent and back again. "That is the strangest thing I've heard this month." "It gets stranger. I need rope, those 2 planks, and Benny Lopez." Benny, who was under the truck checking a tire, slid out on his back and popped to his feet. "You need me now?" "Right now," Vincent said. "If we do this wrong, the barrels hit the diner. If we do it right, we get a parade float." Benny blinked once. Then he grinned. "That sounds better." Cal shook his head, but he was already pulling the truck key from his pocket. "If you wreck my clutch, Donahue, I am making you fix it before supper." "Fair," Vincent said. They moved fast. Cal backed the flatbed into the alley that led to the open street. Benny and Vincent lifted the 2 planks and laid them from the curb up to the truck bed. The boards made a rough ramp. Then Cal tossed down the rope coil. Vincent grabbed it, looped one end around a stake in the truck bed, and pulled it tight. Ruth came running over with a broom in one hand. "What are you doing?" "Catching them," Vincent said. She stared. "Catching 6 barrels with that?" "Not with that alone. With this, the truck, and a little luck." She shook her head. "You are either a genius or a fool." "Today I hope it's the first one," Vincent said. The barrels were only a few seconds away now. One rolled past the barber shop and left a streak in the dust. Another bounced, hit a curb, and kept coming. Vincent stood at the bottom of the ramp, rope in hand, and waited for the first one. The barrel came at him like a brown drum rolling downhill. He stepped to the side, swung the rope, and caught it around the metal hoop in the middle. Then he pulled hard. The barrel turned just enough to line up with the plank ramp. It climbed the board with a deep wooden thump, rolled into the truck bed, and struck the far rail. "One!" Benny shouted. The second barrel followed so close that it almost hit the first. Sheriff Mercer shoved the left plank a few inches wider. Cal waved his arms like he was guiding an airplane. The barrel rolled up, hit the bed, and bumped the first one into a neat brace against the rail. The third barrel came next, rocking from side to side. Vincent caught it with the rope and gave it a sharp tug. It wobbled, bumped the truck tailgate, and landed with a hard bang. The smell of root beer began to drift into the hot air. It was sweet and sharp and cold in the middle of all that dust. A little foam seeped from one loose bung and dripped onto the boards. People on the sidewalks started to cheer, but there were still 3 barrels left. One of them came rolling straight toward Bell's diner. Ruth made a small sound and grabbed the edge of her door. Vincent. The barrel hit a rough patch in the road, jumped, and headed for the diner steps. Vincent did not have time to think. He ran at it, grabbed the rope, and threw his body to the side. The barrel swung away from the porch by just a few inches. It scraped the curb, slammed onto the plank ramp, and bounced into the truck bed with a boom that made the flatbed jump on its springs. For one split second, the whole truck leaned to the right. Vincent felt his boots slide on the tailgate. "Winch!" he yelled. Cal spun the handle on the side of the truck as fast as he could. Benny grabbed the rope and pulled back. Sheriff Mercer jammed his boot against the ramp to keep it from shifting. The truck settled. The big barrel stopped rocking. 2 barrels left. The next one rolled in clean and easy, like it had been planning to help all along. The last barrel came slower, bouncing once, then twice, then up the ramp. Vincent caught the rope, gave one quick pull, and sent it into place beside the others. The runaway flood was over. For a moment, the street went quiet. Then Ruth began to laugh. Sheriff Mercer took off his hat and wiped his forehead. Cal sat down hard on the truck bumper and let out a long breath. "Well," Cal said, "that was the loudest quiet I have ever seen." Mr. Mays came hurrying up the street, with his handkerchief still in his hand. He looked at the truck bed full of barrels, the rope, the planks, and the crowd that was now cheering instead of running. "Vincent Earl Donahue," he said, "if you had not been here, my barrels would have flattened half the town." Vincent scratched the back of his neck. "I just got lucky that Cal had a truck." Ruth pointed at the truck bed. "That is not just a truck anymore. That is a parade float." Everybody looked again. She was right. The barrels sat in the flatbed like a row of giant drum tops. The rope held them tight. The planks were still in place. The front of the truck had a clean board for a sign. And the whole thing already looked too big and too funny to be anything else. Mr. Mays slapped his knee and laughed. "If it's going to be in the street anyway," he said, "it might as well be in the parade." That was all the town needed to hear. Ruth sent 2 boys to the hardware store for red, white, and blue paper strips. One of the diner girls ran home and came back with a bundle of ribbon. Mr. Tate sent 2 band boys to help. Cal found a hammer, a box of nails, and a can of blue paint. Vincent took a brush and painted the sign across the front board in big letters, "Cottonwood Junction Root Beer Special." Benny tied bunting around the truck rails. Ruth tucked paper stars between the barrels. The sheriff hung a small American flag from the side mirror. Someone brought a stack of paper cups. Someone else brought ice from the diner. In less than 15 minutes, the flatbed truck that had almost lost a battle with 6 runaway barrels became the wildest float in town. By then, the courthouse clock was moving toward 11:30, and the parade line was already forming. The mayor walked over, looked at the decorated truck, and laughed so hard he had to hold on to his hat. "I was going to ask the fire truck to lead," he said, "but this beats it." The band struck up a march. Drums tapped. Trumpets lifted. Cal climbed into the driver's seat. Vincent stepped onto the tailgate and held the rope in one hand like it was a set of reins. The sun flashed on the barrels. The flags snapped in the warm wind. Then the float rolled out onto Main Street. It was a sight nobody in Cottonwood Junction would forget. The barrels stood tall behind Vincent. Band music rang through the square, and the truck moved slow and proud past the diner, the bandstand, the feed store, and the barber shop. Every time one wheel hit a bump, a little puff of foam rose from a loose bung, and the kids screamed with delight. It looked for all the world like the town had built a moving root beer fountain and put Vincent Earl Donahue on top of it. People poured out of doorways to wave. Men in work shirts took off their hats. Mothers laughed and pointed. A little girl with a red ribbon in her hair asked, "Is that really how they make a parade float?" Vincent called down to her, "Only on the best days." At the park, Ruth handed out the first cups of cold root beer. the cups filled with fizz and foam. Kids lined up with sticky fingers and wide eyes. Sheriff Mercer took one sip and nodded hard. "You saved lunch," he said. Vincent took a cup from Ruth and smiled. "I just kept the street from getting sticky." Ruth gave him a look. "You talk like this was easy." "It was not easy," Vincent said. "It was just the only thing that made sense." She laughed and handed him a piece of pie on a paper plate. By noon, the whole town was talking about the Runaway Root Beer Flood. Some people said the barrels rolled faster than a freight train. Some said Vincent must have thought of the plan in 1 second flat. Some said the float was better than any one the parade committee could have built on purpose. The story got bigger every time it was told, but the facts stayed the same. The diner still had its windows. The bandstand still stood. The parade went on. And Cottonwood Junction, Oklahoma, got its 4th of July before lunch, thanks to Vincent Earl Donahue, a flatbed truck, a few ropes, and the wildest load of root beer the town had ever seen.